You knock it off right now. It's gone. Moshahidi with room launches. Kaboom! From another time zone. This is comical, cartoonish, and downright ridiculous. Ahoy, and welcome back for Season 2, Episode 11 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Last week, we predicted the NBA Conference Finals. We looked over the easiest, the hardest, and the weirdest schedules after the NFL regular season schedule release. And now that I think about it, that was a pretty big to-do, so that's about all we got to. This week, we're going to have to predict the NBA Finals. I won't know for certain at the time of recording that the Knicks haven't made a somewhat miraculous comeback from down 3-1 to the Pacers, and they'll play Game 5 on Thursday night in the Garden, so there is a chance they push it to 6. I am going to assume that the Pacers are still going to take care of business, and as such, I'll give predictions for the Pacers and Thunder in the NBA Finals. There is one thing to get to first, and I want to throw this out because it's so fresh in my mind. Let's start with a Maddox. If you're super in the weeds with baseball stats, like myself, then you may know exactly what I'm referring to, but if you're not, I'll give you a tad bit of background. Greg Maddux is a Hall of Fame starting pitcher who threw over 5,000 innings, won 355 games, and had over 3,300 strikeouts, mostly with the Cubs and Braves. There are a lot of reasons why he's super well known, like winning a record 18 Gold Gloves and a run of 4 Cy Youngs in a row at one point, but what I really want to note is that he has a stat named after him. That is incredibly rare company in sports. There's a select few that I can say I really know off the top of my head. The ones that I can come up with are, for example, a Gordie Howe hat trick, Moss when you catch a football on somebody's head. Plus, I actually just learned a new one in my Ultimate Frisbee gig called a Callahan. The stat we're going to be talking about today is called the Maddox. It's the simplest stat in the world, really, but incredibly difficult to do. A Maddox is a complete game shutout with under 100 pitches. It's probably the best possible display of control and dominance woven together. It's uncommon because of how short the leash is on starting pitchers and how cautious managers are with their aces and kind of the disappearance of the workhorse starter. If you recall the 2020 COVID season where the league only played 60 games, there actually wasn't a single Maddox thrown. The most Maddoxes, if you'll allow me to make it a plural, that have ever been thrown in a season across the league was 25 back in 1988. Greg Maddux himself, unsurprisingly, has thrown the most Maddoxes in MLB history with 13. The start that made me pick this topic for this episode was from the reigning AL Cy Young and Triple Crown winner Tarik Skubal. You might have heard of him. On Sunday, May 25th, a day that will go down in Tigers history, Skubal was on the mound facing the Guardians. They're the team that beat him in Game 5 of the ALDS last year. They're the team that the Tigers get to see 13 times every year that they know and hate probably more than any other. Skubal is already a super emotional guy on the mound, as evidenced by the kind of screams that he lets out when he strikes some guys out, especially in the later innings with runners on and things like that, the high leverage situations. And let me tell you what he can do when he's angry, when he's out there looking for revenge. Let me tell you a story of a hot knife and a whole bunch of butter. Skubal wasn't just good on Sunday. It wasn't just the best outing of his season or career, maybe even his life. It was an all-time amazing start, and there were some personal and MLB records that came with it. The line went like this: 9 innings, of course. Fun fact, also Skubal's first complete game. 2 hits, no walks, 1 hit by pitch, got 1 double play, and struck out 13. If my math serves right, I believe that means that he faced 2 batters over the minimum. Career highs or lows pretty much across the board. The many, many records. Let's just run through all of them in no particular order from that start. The most strikeouts ever recorded in a Maddox. The previous record was 12. His last pitch of the day was probably the greatest fastball ever thrown by a starting pitcher. It was a sinker with a ton of run at 102.6 miles an hour. It started pretty much middle in, and it ended up practically hitting poor Gabriel Arias in the back hip. He got sort of tied up like, when old-time strongmen would bend iron bars by hand? He was one of two guys that Skubal struck out 3 times each, the other one being Austin Hedges. That 102.6 was the fastest pitch ever thrown by a left-handed starting pitcher, and the fastest pitch ever thrown in the 9th inning by a starting pitcher, topping prime Justin Verlander. We could be on that cusp of sort of seeing the mantle of greatest Tiger of the last, X number of years, or even maybe greatest Tiger starting pitcher ever starting to get passed. All of this to say, there's going to be stories told about this game for a long time. Funny enough, though, it could have been even better. As mentioned, Skubal did allow 2 hits, even 1 double. The first 5 innings, though, he had a perfect game going. That would have kept me glued to the screen at an unhealthy distance. It seems like only a matter of time before he gets that no-hitter or even perfect game. You hate to say that. I understand that there's only been 24 of them thrown, and oftentimes they come at kind of random times or from some random guys, right? Domingo Germán a couple of years ago with the Yankees is a great example. Philip Humber with the White Sox. Boy, I couldn't tell you how many years ago that's been, but a while. And still, when you have the best stuff, you can see at every single start that this could be special. For my money, it's also kind of a relief when you have a pitcher that's working on a start that can be special like this, and the first hit actually comes a little bit earlier on so that you don't have to dwell on it. I just watched a clip on YouTube last week of Yu Darvish losing a perfect game with 2 outs in the 9th back in 2013. I think that would really eat me up as a fan to just have to be so on edge for so long, especially if, your offense is doing really well and those half innings are taking a long time and it's a 3+ hour game. There would be so much emotional investment to it. It truly would be stressful even to just watch it. One other oddity about this game is that the first pitch was 11:35 a.m. and it was aired on Roku. Roku did something really awesome by airing this for free for everyone, so all you had to do was open up your web browser and click on it. At least that's what I did. I presume that you could also find it on the Roku channel. But with so many other outlets, bidding to get even a couple of games a year across the major leagues, Netflix is probably going to get some baseball games at some point, right? I really have to credit Roku a ton for doing this, because I'm sure it's not cheap to buy the rights to even one single game. And they let me watch my glorious king throw a 94-pitch Maddox with 13 strikeouts. Finally, the last I'm going to say on this, you did not ask, but the Tigers are still the best team in baseball, and Skubal versus Max Fried for the Cy Young race down the stretch should be awesome. As for the NBA Finals, can I just get a show of hands from everyone that picked the Pacers and Thunder to be the matchup we'd get? I'm not going to hold you in suspense or troll you by any means. OKC is going to be the champs, but how they get there is something I'm still somewhat working through. We'll briefly review the picks that I made from the conference finals and see if those can inform any further guesses for the finals. As far as the outcomes of the conference finals series, I had the Pacers in 6, and I took the Thunder to sweep. I'm going to assume I will at least be close on the Pacers and Knicks series, with Indiana currently up 3-1 as I record earlier Thursday. Game 5 will be Thursday night. The biggest aberration of maybe the entire playoffs, and one of the most hilarious games, was the Wolves' 41-point win against the Thunder in Game 3. It just goes to show you that anyone can beat anyone on any given night. I said the Wolves' best chance to win the series was just going to be to get super hot from 3 and to take a ton of threes. Then in that Game 3, what did they do? They shot 20 of 40. 7 different Wolves scored in double digits that night, including 4 of them off the bench. They shot 57% from the floor, and they had finally figured out a way to slow down the regular season MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and that Thunder offense, which when we think about it, so far this playoffs, it had really been better than advertised up to that point. The Wolves pressured the ball a ton, they forced 14 turnovers, had a rebounding edge of 19, which that had to have stunned the Thunder a little bit, and they were the more physical team for those 48 minutes. Then they were back to getting whooped on for the last 2 games. I thought the Pacers-Knicks series was a little bit more difficult to predict, but things I wanted to see in it were Tyrese Halliburton being the leading scorer for the whole series, even over Jalen Brunson. As of Game 4, Brunson's over 33 a game, and Hallie, to his credit, he is shooting and scoring a lot more than he did in the semis, to the tune of over 24 points a game. But on 19.3 shots, with over 10 of those per game being from three, it should be noted that's probably too inefficient. That's probably not their best formula for winning going forward, if I'm honest, because the numbers just aren't where they should be. But at least he's trying to take over, to have the ball in his hands in big moments, and to be that closer for the series. He's not going to overtake Brunson, barring something really ridiculous and kind of dramatic happening in Game 5 or beyond, or barring some kind of injury. But I took my shot, and Tyrese upping his scoring will really benefit the Pacers' offense in the finals. Haliburton did make some pretty cool history in Game 4. He had the first 30-10-15 triple-double with no turnovers in playoff history. That's a bit specific, and we've kind of talked about this before on the show. Maybe what you'd call sort of an ESPN stat, where the stats and information department was a little bit bored, and they're looking into, okay, if we apply enough parameters to this, can we find some exact stat combo that nobody's ever done before? I don't want to take anything away, because it was an unbelievable game from Haliburton in Game 4, and everybody knows when you take that 3-1 lead, the series is pretty much over. Their coach, Rick Carlisle, made a funny comment post-game that maybe they should name that stat after him, and I'd be down for it because, man, that is good podcast fodder. Other things I wanted to see in the conference finals. Chet Holmgren getting a career high in blocks. That never materialized because the Thunder were so far ahead in 3 out of the 4 wins and so far behind in the 1 loss. Chet averaged 28 minutes in the series, and he never really had to do anything spectacular. I threw up kind of a prayer saying that any other player besides SGA would win the series MVP. He ran away with it, even considering that one clunker of a game in Game 3. There wasn't even another option. With all of that said, I like to be aggressive with basketball predictions, and I did not hit on a ton of things, but it is time now to predict the 2024-25 NBA Finals. We'll go with individuals first, then the series results second. SGA is almost a lock to win MVP. Chet Holmgren is listed at 80-1 odds as of Thursday. The Thunder's 2-guard, Jalen Williams, is actually at 40-1, and no one else from OKC really has good enough odds to mention. There are still odds offered for the Knicks as well, but those bets become void if and when they don't end up in the finals at all. By that logic, I guess you could throw a few dollars on Jalen Brunson at 30-1. That wouldn't be bad. Tyrese Haliburton, unsurprisingly, is second in MVP odds at plus 600, but use your eyes and your heart and tell me that you think that the Pacers really have a chance to beat the Thunder with the gauntlet that the Thunder have run to get here. It was great that the Pacers beat the Cavs, but Cleveland was just out of gas from a really tough second half, and the Thunder look like their gas tanks are pretty much limitless, honestly. I also have to take SGA to be the leading scorer in the series. The MVP of the finals and the leading scorer don't have to be the same person. If you'll recall, last year, Jaylen Brown won it over Jason Tatum for the Celtics, even though Tatum outscored him. And then I think the last time it had happened before then was maybe Anthony Davis in the bubble in 2020, or it may have been Andre Iguodala back in 2015 with the Warriors. I'm not quite sure, but it was definitely one of those guys. It would take some crazy lockdown defense and a bunch of good peripheral numbers like plus, minus, and defensive rating, so I don't really see that happening. I think almost certainly SGA will be the MVP and the leading scorer. Wish I had any other super interesting individual predictions. I guess we'll toss these in. I don't think that we'll see any triple doubles, any game winners with no time left, anything else that's particularly dramatic. That leads nicely into the results predictions, though. This will be the absolute last time I reiterate this. Because there's no Cavaliers and no Celtics left in this field, the Thunder are going to be NBA champions. I'd love to say that there's something that the Pacers or even the Knicks could do to prevent that, but I don't think there is. There have only been 9 sweeps in finals history. That's one of those that when I was researching this, I thought, well, that can't be right, is it? And I had to check a couple of sources, but it is true. The most recent one being the Warriors over the Cavs in 2018. So as lopsided as this series is going to be, I wouldn't count on a sweep. Thunder in 5 is the most likely scenario I can think of, although I'm not even quite sure I know how the Pacers, again, or the Knicks, but I feel like that is way less likely, are going to steal a game. It would almost have to be like Game 3 of the conference finals, where OKC just never shows up and gets off the bus, and whichever other team has one incredible, unsustainably good shooting night. I assume that if the Thunder do lose a game, it will be on the road, and I think this is one of the easiest rounds of predictions I've ever had to do. Let's just leave it there if you're okay with it, and in a couple weeks' time, we'll be crowning the OKC Thunder as NBA champions. Quick grab bag at the end of the episode, like we're wont to do around here. Caitlin Clark missed her first regular season game with the Indiana Fever on Wednesday of this week, and her first regular season game of any kind since back in high school. You're talking 2017 to 2025. I hadn't heard about this one before because no one had ever had to think about it. It's a quad injury that's going to keep her out at least 3 or 4 games, and she's going to miss a few Commissioner's Cup games. If you don't quite remember the specs of the Commissioner's Cup, either listen back to Season 1, Episode 13, or just Google it. Ticket prices fell dramatically for that Wednesday game with the Mystics and are still a whole lot cheaper for all of the Fever's games the next 2 weeks. Talk about transcendence. The MLB is buying equity in the Athletes Unlimited Softball League, or AUSL. Softball is one of those sports that I'm always surprised hasn't taken off at the pro level. Travel ball is so big. College softball is big, and it's getting bigger all the time with help from NIL. Pro softball just sees these new leagues come up and go within a couple of years' time, and with really limited distribution on the media side. The MLB's stake is going to be over 20% of the league, and probably the most important thing is they're going to handle a lot of that marketing and distribution. I think TV and streaming rights deals are more important than anything else for creating staying power in leagues right now. I don't think it necessarily matters what your on-field product is. I don't think it necessarily matters, do you have great social media strategy and this and that. That can all help, but I just think that the number one thing is getting eyeballs on your game on the TV. These AUSL games are going to air on ESPN and even MLB Network, which is a great gesture. They're more of a touring and exhibition league right now. They're planning to play in 12 big cities this year with 4 teams and a 72-game season, and then possibly establish teams that are permanently located in some of these cities later on. Also, I checked on the league website, and the tickets are starting at like $20 for most of these. So if you live anywhere near one of those host cities, you can definitely go for super cheap. Last thing for today is the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft, Travis Hunter, practicing both ways. They're really going to do it. We are really going to see a player play both sides of the ball in 2025. He's been running with the ones on the Jaguars offense, practicing most often on that side of the ball, and then getting more like 1 day a week of defensive reps at corner. He still has to be in both meeting rooms all the time, presumably has to watch all the film from both sides, and he will have to be in the best shape of his life to get on the field on both sides at all during the regular season, but he might just be as unique as the Jaguars think. Their head coach Liam Cohen said in a press conference this week that he won't practice both during the same OTA session, but it might have to happen during the regular season because of how short a practice week is and how little time teams actually have out there to get better. I'm truly hoping Travis Hunter can be above average both ways in the NFL. I still don't think it's possible to play 100-plus snaps and be even close to a full-time starter on both sides, but just some contributions from each is extremely special. He could pull the entire Jaguars franchise out of the mud if he can pull this off, especially considering how much they had to trade away to pick him. They really need some value back. Also, if you're in a fantasy league that has scoring for individual defensive players, this has been bouncing around in my head a while, I wonder, is it possible to use him in that IDP spot as well as on offense to try and double down? I still don't necessarily expect him to be fantasy relevant in year 1 because he isn't going to be their number 1 receiver. That title is clearly reserved for Brian Thomas Jr., who put up 10 touchdowns and 1,282 yards as a rookie with some strange quarterback play. He probably could have won Rookie of the Year if Jaden Daniels didn't exist. Even so, Travis Hunter could be on that watch list. He could be on, I don't want to say the defensive Rookie of the Year watch list too, but I mean, think about it. If he really does amazing in limited time defensively too, okay, that's getting too far ahead. I'm going to shut this down. Eventually, Be ready to see one of the most unique players in NFL history at some point in the regular season getting a goodly number of snaps on both sides of the ball. Whether or not he ends up extremely good, we'll find out, but you know he's going to contribute on both. And we will wrap up Season 2, Episode 11. Not a ton of new stuff to add for this week. I miss football a lot, and there is really not a lot of fun stuff coming from NFL camps or free agency. I am going to have to start making fantasy rankings a lot earlier than I thought I was going to because I'm just getting that itch. Don't be surprised if that's in the next few weeks. Beyond that, I've mentioned this once or twice, I'll be covering the Michigan High School State Track Finals on this Saturday, May 31st. I will link that stream from the NFHS network in the description. I'll be the first one to say that I wish it was free or there was at least some short free trial period because, boy, sports at the youth level, and if you're going to live stream them, is the point not to get the greatest number of people that can't make it in person watch? I don't know. I do get a copy of the stream to download after the fact, and of course I go back and make content with it, but I would really like to see people be able to watch it totally for free, as somebody who gets paid to do this, you know what I mean? I did these same finals last year, MHSAA Division III, and it was the longest stream of my entire life. It was over 9 hours, I think, and 14 gigabytes when I downloaded it. That's actually one of the bigger sacrifices content creators make. I am running out of storage on every device I have all at once right now, but of course it is a good problem to have for content's sake. Have an awesome week, check out all my socials, leave a like, comment, and this time I will personally task you with sharing this one to somebody you know that enjoys sports talk. This has been Season 2, Episode 11 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Thanks for joining me. Oh, you knock it off right now, it's gone! Mojahidi with room launches! Kaboom! From another time zone. This is comical, cartoonish, and downright ridiculous.